Hello and welcome back to Tanya. We're up to now chapter 20. So we've been on the topic of the ultimate sacrifice of any Jew that could possibly take place, happened in the past, it shouldn't happen like it happened, which touches the essence, and that is the test of idolatry. The test in either choosing worshiping God or choosing, God forbid, another idol, another false god, right? And we've seen many examples where Jews have given their lives up in order not to do an action or speech, in order not to deny the one God. So we're going to go into this idea of the one God, of the belief in one God, as well as the severity of idolatry in this chapter right now. Chapter 20, Perek Chaf. והנה מודעת זאת לכל, כי מצוות ועזרת עבודה זרה, שם שני דיברות הראשונים, אנוכי ולא יהיה לך, הם כללו לתוך הכולה. It's known, it's famous, it's brought in many places. That the commandment to believe in one God and the admonition of idol worship, which are the two first of the 10 commandments, which are Anochi, I am your God, and you shall not have other gods. Those two commandments are the makeup of the entire Torah. And to explain this, we're going to go into an explanation which will take about 3 chapters or so, if I'm not mistaken. But the initial explanation is that the first commandment of I am your God, in other words, believe in one God, is the makeup of the 248 positive commandments. And the second commandment, you shall not have other gods, is the makeup of the 365 negative commandments. Right? There's positive commandments and there's negative commandments. Okay. ולכן שמענו אנוכי ולא יהיה לך לבד מפי הגבורה. And therefore, because they make up the whole Torah, we only heard these first two of I am your God and don't have other gods alone from God himself by the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. The first two commandments were voiced by God himself to the Jewish people, and the last 8 of the 10 commandments were only given over by Moses. Like the saying of our sages of blessed memory in the Talmud and so on, that is because they are the makeup of the entire Torah. עניין ומהות אחדותו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, שנגחה יחיד ומיוחד. So, to explain this idea, which, like I said, is going to be a lengthy explanation of a few chapters, we have to first mention in short, I guess a few chapters is considered short for this idea, because this topic is discussed very lengthily in the teachings of Chassidus. Which idea? The idea of and the idea and the essence of the oneness of God, who is called the one and the one and the united one, right? Yachid in Hebrew, one means that there's no other. There's just one and nothing else. And that's what we say in the blessings before Shema in the morning. Hamelech hamaromam levado, the king that is exalted alone. Levado, alone. This topic of God's aloneness and oneness. V'chol ma'aminim shehu levado. And all believe that's I believe a quote from the prayers of the Yamim Noraim, I believe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. All believe that He is alone. Kemo shehaya kodem shenivcha ha'olam mamash. The same way that He was before the world was created, literally. Before the first day of creation, right? We had 6 days of creation. Before the first day of creation, there was nothing. So God was alone in the world. Sorry, not in the world, there was nothing. It was just God and nothing else. Shehayahu levado. He was alone. Ukemo shekatuv atahu at shelo nivcha ha'olam. Atahu mi shenivcha chulu. And as it says, we say this in the morning prayers before we start the prayers. In Korbanos, we say, you are the one until the world was created, and you are the one from when the world was created. What does that mean exactly? Pirush hu mamash bli shum shinui. Kedichtiv ani havai lo shiniti. That means you are the one. What one? You are the same one. The same one before the world was created. It was just you. So too, after the world was created, you are the same. Without any change. As it actually brings the verse, I, God, have not changed. There's no change in God. God was alone before the world was created, and now the world was created. We have all these creations and the world and so on, and God remains alone. And that's also the meaning of what we say in Shema, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. God is one. God is one means that there's nothing else besides for God. Now, how can we exactly understand this? That God is alone. I mean, I think I exist, and I see all these other creations that exist. There's earth, there's water, there's everything that you can see in the world that exists. So what does it mean that God is alone? Seemingly there's many other things that exist in addition to God. So the explanation is like he's going to say right now. Ki olam hazeh v'chen kol ha'olamot ha'elyonim einan po'elim shum shinui be'achduto yitbachach b'hibar'a me'ayin leyesh. Because this world, and so too all of the higher worlds, which are spiritual, do not affect a change in the oneness of God by being created from nothing to something. They don't actually change him. And it doesn't matter how spiritual you want to get, how great of a world there is. In the works of Kabbalah, for those that are familiar, you have the world of Atzilus. Nevertheless, for Hashem himself, the world of Atzilus, which is so great, and our world are equally valueless. It's as if they don't exist. And shekamo shehayehu levadohu yachidu miyuchad kodem hibaram ken hu levadohu yachidu miyuchad achach shebchaam. In that the same way he was alone before their creation, so too he is alone and one and united after their creation. Mishum Dekula kame kelachashiv v'ka'ayin v'efes mamash. Because, how can you explain that God didn't change and he stays alone? So the short answer is this, few-word answer really, but it contains in it so much. So you can think about this for ages. And again, like I said, it's discussed in length in Chassidus, that the reason is that he didn't change is because everything in front of Hashem himself is as if it is valueless and it is like nothing and null, literally. It doesn't have any value to Hashem. In Hashem's presence, from Hashem's point of view, everything doesn't have any value. It's as if it doesn't exist. The world that we see for Hashem, so to speak, it's as if it doesn't exist. For us, we see a world, we see a mountain, we see a cloud, we see rain, whatever it is. For Hashem, all those things, everything that this world contains and everything that this world is, it's as if it just doesn't exist. Think about that. Ki התהוות כל העולמות עליונים ותחתונים הם העין ליש וחיותם בקיומם המקיימם שלא יחזרו להיות עין ואפס כשהיה אינו אלא דבר השם ברוח פיו יתברך המלובש בהם. So now to give an explanation is as follows. Because the creation of all the worlds, higher and lower, from nothing to something, and their life force and sustainment, that they should not return to nothing like they were, is only from the words of Hashem and the breath of his mouth, blessed be he, that is contained in them. And as you will see in the second part of Tanya, Shar HaYichud VeHaEmunah, that the only way that the world can continue to exist and not go back to just nothing, it is only because Hashem has a utterance, words that are constantly sustaining the world. Everything is being sustained with God's words. And that is what is keeping it alive. There's never a moment when God's words are not pumping life and actively creating everything that exists. Because if it would stop, the world would revert to nothingness. U'lemashal. So now, how do you exactly understand God's speech, so to speak? U'lemashal, so let's give an example. Kemo benefesh ha'adam, כשמדבר דבר אחד, שדיבור זה לבדו כלא ממש, אפילו לגבי כללות נפשו מדברת. By a person, and the example is a person that speaks one word, one thing. This one word itself has no value, even just compared to the his power of speech as a whole. This power of speech is the medium, the middle garment of his soul. There's the first garment is thought, second garment is speech, and then the third garment is action. So it's the middle garment. Speech is the middle garment. And the power of speech, which is the middle garment, compared to it, just one word is valueless. שהוא כוח הדיבור, the power of speech שלה, שיכול לדבר דיבורים לאין קץ ותכלית. Because this power of speech can speak words to no end. It can speak an infinite amount. וכל שכן לגבי בחינת לבוש הפנימי שלה, שהוא המחשבה שממנה נמשכו הדיבורים, והיא חיותם. And how much more so, one speech, one word, doesn't have any value to the higher garment. Before speech, what comes before speech? Thought. So one word in speech has no value next to the power of thought that a soul has. That from this thought, from the power of thought, comes words, comes speech. And it is the life of the speech. ואין צריך לומר לגבי מהות ועצמות הנפש, שנעשך בחינותיה הנזכרם לעיל, חוכמה בינה דעת חולו. And you don't even have to say that one word in speech doesn't have any value compared to the essence of the soul, which we said is, earlier, the 10 levels of intellect and emotions, chachma bina das, and so on, which we explained in length earlier. See, I believe, chapter 3. That from the 10 levels, the 10 intellectual level, the 10 intellectual and emotional levels, from them came the words of the thought, of this thought, which comes into this speech. רק שהן רוחניות ודקות יותר. And the words in the thought are the same as the words of the speech. If a person thinks something and then they speak it, it's the same words. The difference is that in the thought, the words are more spiritual and more refined. But the 10 levels of intellect and emotions, they are the source and the origin of thought. And at that stage of the intellect or the emotions, there aren't words yet, before it comes into the thought, the power of thought. Words only begin once the thought begins. But before the thought, there are no words. In the intellect and in the emotions, there are no words. למשל, כשנופלת איזו אהבה וחמדה בליבו של אדם, קודם שעולה מהלב אל המוח, לחשוב ולהכרח בה. אין בה בחינת אותיות עדיין. For example, let's say that a certain love and desire comes into the heart of a man. Before it actually goes up from the heart to the mind to think about it, it still doesn't have words. A love of something, before it comes into the mind to think about it, in the heart, is empty of words. Just a simple desire and yearning in the heart for that thing that is pleasant to him. But it's not words, it's just a simple desire. וכל שכן קודם שנפלה טייבה והחמדה בליבו, לאותו דבר רק הייתה בכוח חוכמתו ושכלו ודעתו. And for sure, there's no words before this desire and pleasant thing came into his heart for that thing. And it was just in the power of his intellect, his chachma and his intellect and his knowledge. That it was known to him in his intellect, in the intellectual stage, this thing that it is pleasant and good and nice to go after it, to get it, and to attach himself to it. It could go on, for example, to learn a kind of wisdom, or to eat a certain sweet food. At that stage in the intellect, there still are no words. Words don't exist. In the emotions, they don't exist. And how much more so before the emotions in the intellect, they don't exist. Only after it already fell, this desire and pleasantness fell in his heart. From the power of his intellect. And then from the heart, it went back to the mind to think about it. How to actually bring out this desire from potential to actuality, right? To actually attain the food or to learn the wisdom. Before, practically, now, at the point of thought, words are created in his mind. Which are the words of the language of every nation. That speak and think in such words all matters of the world. In other words, what we're saying is that a word in our speech has no value next to the power of speech. How much more so it has no value next to the power of thought, which is the source of the speech. How much more so it has no value in the emotions, and even before that, the source of the emotions, the intellect, where it's so beyond words that words don't even exist over there. And we're going to explain what the parable comes to teach us in the following chapter. So make sure to stay tuned for chapter 21. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed.